of Education order. Members, you've got a copy of the agenda for this evening. Are there any changes? All right, hearing none, then I need a motion that we approve the agenda as presented. Motion by Kelly, second by Brenda, all in favor? It is approved. I'm going to ask if you would please stand and conference for this pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we're thankful this day. It's been a beautiful day, and we're so thankful. And at this time, we're praying for the ones that have been affected so severely from the tropical storm and hurricane. We're so mindful of them that's have family that's lost life, that's lost homes and businesses. And Heavenly Father, we know that they're devastated. We pray that some way we can help them and you'll be with them. Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this meeting. It's a blessing and a privilege to come together and discuss the business of the schools. We pray for wisdom. We're so thankful for the great year that we've started having. We pray that it will continue and you'll put a hedge of protection around our kids, that we'll go all year and not have any incidents or accidents or any problem. We pray that you'll just continue to be with us. You just want to say, do think things contrary to thy will. In Christ's name, amen.
Next item is the consent items. You have a copy of the minutes for September the 5th. That we did the work session and the regular meeting back to back. Are there any questions on those? I do have one. This may not make a difference in my view or Daniel. On the regular meeting, we didn't do the pledge, of course, because we'd already done it. We didn't do the executive session. And we amended the agenda, but it's still showing on here. Do we need to remove it, or does it really matter?
I don't know that it matters about the flag and the prayer.
Yeah.
But I might amend it as to executive session so that there's no confusion as to whether you mean it or not.
Okay. So we just need to remove that from the minutes. Any other question on the minutes? All right, no public participation on the same. Okay. Next is the superintendent's report.
We'll start off with Dr. Smith, operational and financial effectiveness. We didn't know she was going to be here tonight because she is on grandbaby watch.
Oh, how exciting. I get a text, I'm out of here. I don't care what they are.
You got to back up and catch it, get it before you're finished.
I told him that he's heard me do it.
Oh, okay.
I told her it'd be the shortest financial report we've had.
That's right. He said I could come back Monday.
Oh.
Yeah, right. I wasn't planning on being here then either. All right, so this shouldn't take very long. What we're gonna be talking about is actually how we finally ended in June, but before we do that, let's talk about the SPLOST dollars. So, we have our September collection in there, and it ended up being around $559,000, compared to this time last year, which was around $435,000. So that was a good increase of around $123,000. Of course, September of '22 is our anomaly. That's where we had $937,000. But we're back to where we were back in September of '21, basically, which was around $545. So SPLOST dollars are continuing to come in. If you'll look down there, we're staying pretty consistently in the fives since June, 500,000s, and so we still anticipate that we'll meet our maximum amount on that referendum sometime in December, January, February. That's going to pretty much stay the same. But we've collected around 15 million of the 25 million. So SPLOST is coming in just like it has been, pretty consistent. Okay. Next, we'll talk about how we ended June. We finally got to the end of the year end, and we ended up, I think what's most important and what you want to know, have the biggest interest in is how we ended up with our fund equity. So I'm gonna go right on down here just a second, we'll talk about revenues. So that first column here is how we actually ended up with our revenues. We collected $73,531,000 and some dollars, which was around 99% of what we amended our budget to be for those increased revenues, which is, you know, pretty significant more than the year previous, which was around 69 million. So revenues came in more than we originally anticipated. We amended the budget and came in right under it. So revenues were at 73 million. Then we got down here to expenditures. So expenditures came in at 78 million. So we amended the budget back again in June or so to account for those increased expenditures that we carried over from the ESSER money. So we spent 99% of that amended budget, which was significantly more than the previous year where we spent about 70 million. But I say again, we had the ESSER money that was absorbing a lot of our costs back in FY '23. So how did we end up? So if you look here in the first column, our expenditures exceeded our revenues by 4.5 million. We had amended the budget to, we thought it was gonna be around 4.7 million, so I said it's not over till it's over. So some last minute deposits came in, and so we were able to apply that to our deficit, so we ended up around 4.5 million. If you take off that from where we were, we ended the year at 8.4 million instead of the 8.2 that we had amended the budget and predicted. So that's our beginning point. That's where we'll, of course, the audit is the final say. When we finish the audit, which probably won't be till February or March, they're the ones that have the final say of what your fund balance is. But with everything reported to the state, we've already uploaded all of our expenditures and our revenues. It should, you know, it should be a pretty true picture of where we'll be. So that's, should be our beginning point for FY '25. So we're working on, now, is coming up to present to you where we think we're gonna end up in June of 25, June of 25, which will be the end of this fiscal year. So at our next meeting or before, we'll have those projections out for you. We just ran September payroll, so we'll use September payroll to project out the rest of the remaining payroll and all the benefits, and that'll give us a good idea of where we'll end up this time next year. So, any questions on that?
I have a question. Sure. You know, one time I asked about how much money do we have? Well, when I was looking at this, okay, it looks like the ending in this general fund is 8.4 million, but then on this balance sheet, the cash is 10.4. So what's the difference? Is it two separate accounts or is it one account?
It's one account. So cash is figured about what the cash picture was at that particular time, but cash is not just cash in the bank.
Right.
That it's our investment pool. It is several, not the SPLOST dollars, but there's several things that go into making that cash number. And then on there, we projected what the QBE was gonna be for the end of the year. So that's money that's coming in as revenue. So your fund equity is down here in your liability section. That equals back to our 8.4 million. So it takes,
Okay.
that basically balances your assets to your liabilities. So the difference between the two is your fund balance. How much you have and how much you owe and how much you spend is the equity that you have.
So the difference between the 17 3 and the 8.4? Is that what you're saying is is how much we've actually got? Tell me, I didn't understand what you said.
Okay, so if you look at the payable on the liabilities and the salaries that we expected that we were gonna
Okay.
have to pay,
Right.
our payments and liabilities there is
Right.
minimum. The difference is between all the assets there and minus those payables there that you see is the equity, that's the difference, the 8.4.
Okay,
So if you took the 17 and you started minusing off,
Gotcha.
you'd equal up at 8.4,
gotcha, okay,
okay?
okay.
Now, can I write you a check tonight for 8.4? No.
I
Yes, you could.
Just don't have the reaction. Yeah. So, you know, our budget and our fund balance and our money is always changing. It changes every day,
Yeah,
several times a day. You know, we've got revenue coming in, we've got expenses going out. Our fund equity is always changing. What basically you end up with is just a beginning and an ending point. On paper, we have around $8.4 million. But we've already spent July and August and September money.
right,
So we've already paid benefits, we've already paid payroll, we've already bought things and expensed things, all those purchase orders, we've already done that. So when I run those expenses, we've already spent around $10 million. So we're already $10 million in to our $8.4 million fund balance. Okay?
well, I was looking, I thought it was the end of the year, so I was just trying to get an idea of where we actually were. And that's why I said that, that's why I asked the question.
Governmental accounting isn't as straightforward as, and somebody would probably be better to explain it than me, but it's not as straightforward as what we perceive our,
Like my
Personal
checking
finances,
account.
right,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
nothing
That's
like
where a
that.
lot of confusion.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, people think it's ran like your own finances.
so often, you know, we talked about this, as I go through September's financials and October, and I tell you, you know, we're in the hole, we're in the hole, we're in the hole, and we're in the hole. So we're spending money, because we have to operate. We can't wait for the money to come in and start school. So we're constantly trying to catch up.
I understand, I was just trying to find,
So,
you know,
I understand, good question. So, you can see, going back to cash, that part of our money is sitting in that investment pool, and I've already pulled $1 million of this out already. So, back in August, we had around $2 million sitting there, we'd earned $18,000 so far this year in interest, which is, you know, about, it's more money, or about the same amount of money we had in the investment pool this time last year. So that kind of lets me know that on our cash, we're kind of coasting just exactly like we were last year. But we've also got a lot of expenditures with payroll and benefits for October and November that are gonna be coming out. And we have to watch our cash flow, because we don't start receiving those local funds until around December. Okay? We only have two POs tonight. The first one is for technology, and it is coming out of the general fund. This is part of the security grant. So these are cameras, and software for Woodlawn. And so, just like any other state grant, you spend the money, and you get it back. So we have to expense it. We have to buy the cameras, we have to get the invoice, we have to pay the invoice, and then we submit the documentation that we did it, and then the state pays us back, and then.
How fast?
I think you get the refund.
I would say that it'll take them 30, 45 days to get our money back.
soon will you know that?
Hopefully before payroll. I think it was pretty common in the past that it had to happen. You guys that have been on the board kind of know that. I'm gonna really watch cash flow. I kind of put Carla on notice today. We have, our bills, our invoices are net 30, so if we come out and we buy something from somebody, Amanda's in her head, she knows what I'm talking about. We got 30 days to pay, and we turn money over in within 5 days. So if we get an invoice today, we'll pay it by next Thursday. So we're really, within net 5 days of paying our bills. I told her on notice today, we're gonna probably be net 30 till that money comes in. We're gonna have her hold back some payments, and we'll make sure I make my payroll, pay the benefits, it's not just the payroll. You got all the health insurance, you got all the stuff, the TRS, you got the taxes, we've got the employer match to all the taxes that we pay. So a payroll runs about $6 to $7 million. And then we get from QBE about 4.8. We gotta make up the difference. So you can see I only have $2 million sitting over here in something I can grab pretty fast. So I'm gonna be holding back some payments probably and paying them within our term, within our time limit, but I'm not gonna be flipping them as fast as we have them. That
Any of
makes
your
sense.
vendors, if y'all pay fast, any of y'all's vendors pay the bonus, like, 5 days is 1%, 2%, none of them?
Sometimes that is on the invoice, and, but we normally don't get that discount.
So the account you're making your payments out of, do we draw interest on it?
Yes,
So why don't you pay them 5 days when you got 30 and keep that money in there to keep a bigger balance to draw interest?
well, that's a good point, and it hasn't really been an issue. We weren't always getting interest. We just recently started an agreement with Synovus to get interest, because what was happening is I was taking all the money out of Synovus and I was putting it in the local government.
We want to keep it.
And they wanted to keep it, so they decided to start paying us interest. So now I don't have to make those transfers as often. So we'll now start practicing that one. But, it was a sense of pride that we paid our bills quickly especially to the businesses in our community, that they knew that we did business with them, that we were gonna pay our bills in a quick manner. And it did bring a lot of pride. I haven't had any business call me up and say, hey, where's my money? So they depend on us too. So if we can pay, we did a check run today. It was around $198,000. That's a low for us. Our check runs are much higher than that. But that was paying out pretty much what we had sitting there ready to pay. So I'll just keep a close eye on it. I'm not saying I won't be back asking for us to do a loan, but I'm gonna try not to. The next PO that we have is for the Remind renewal. This is district software that pretty much applies to all the schools in our district. This is the parent notification app. If I'm right? Yes, Tricia. Parent notification app, and so this is in our budget. It was part of our software. It's one of those things that we added there right before we passed it, because this renewal comes in every year. That is for the parent notification app. And that's the only two that we had. As you can see, spending has slowed down significantly.
Chris didn't take any.
He did not. We had a long discussion today, and I think he's finally on Team Kathy. We came to an understanding, didn't we?
did.
So, no, I mean, like I said before, the operations doesn't stop. It's gonna continue to cost you to operate whether you got money or not. And so, any questions on that happy note?
Now you're free to leave if you get a text.
Right, me.
I got one question, I don't know, but I got this paper, and, cause I need to look, cause they were having.
Sure, FYI.
Yeah, I don't know what this adult English class is, what, $16,000?
Title, that was the Title I, title program they did to,
Okay.
do some English classes for some of our Spanish
Okay.
speaking
So
parents.
anytime you see the 400s, that's gonna be your federal grants.
Okay,
100 is your general.
so we got a grant for that.
It's coming out of federal dollars. It's not necessarily a grant, but there's been a federal allocation, and they're using some of that money to pay for that program.
So there was like curriculum for,
Yes,
Donna?
Donna. Yes, it was actually for the parents of our EL
yeah,
students.
I saw pictures.
Yep, and they came, they had the class, they have several classes throughout the next 2 semesters.
Okay.
And there's books, they have materials, curriculum, the whole 9 yards.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A little bit, I want to skip and look at what you showed the calendar first, then we'll get into our data review. So looking at our calendar for next year, I talked with our leadership team and our principals about trying to get that out earlier, just so we could get it done and kind of set. It allows us to get more calendars set and for parents and teachers and everybody to kind of plan things. When you were talking about a 160-day calendar that starts on Labor Day and ends at Memorial Day, and you have the typical breaks that we've had, whether it's Thanksgiving, President's Day that week, fall break, there's not much variation in that calendar. Especially when you have Decembers that fall a certain way or Mays that fall a certain way. So really and truly, the main 2 things this year that we needed to decide upon were how we were gonna handle pre-planning and when we were gonna have spring break. So shared that information with the principals, they took it back to their schools, talked to their teachers voted on those things, and it was about 70 to 75% on both of these things as to how what we're gonna propose tonight for our school calendar for next year. Now, pre-planning doesn't affect the kids, but it kind of helps set our calendar of days. So we're gonna have 6 days of pre-planning like we did this year. The teachers appreciated that. Rather than having 3 days of post-planning, we moved one of those days to the front end. This year, we did it like this. They came back on the Wednesday, they worked Thursday, they were off on Friday. They came back on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they were off on the Friday before Labor Day, and they came back and started school. We had a couple of different options. One of them was to start on Thursday and Friday and do 2 days and then do 4 days the next week. One of them was to start on Friday and do all 5 days the next week. But this option was the overwhelming one that they chose, was to do it like we do this year. So they'll come in, work Wednesday, Thursday, they'll have Friday, teachers will have Friday off, and we will probably, the buildings will be open on that 22nd, the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, that's back to pre-plan again. This year, what we're probably gonna do next year is have that Friday, that 29th, that'll be closed, the buildings will be closed. We had no traffic anywhere, enrollment, we didn't have traffic. We weren't sure how that was gonna work with the calendar, and so we'll probably have that day off as one of those Fridays that we're off, but, we'll adjust it on the work calendar side. That was the choice there. The other choice was spring break. Easter falls on April 5th of 26. So the 2 choices we gave were the week before Easter and the week after Easter, as far as choosing which week to have spring break. About 70 to 75% chose the week following Easter. So that was what the teachers said that they wanted to do. So we'll be in school, we've got it scheduled as a school day on Good Friday, and working through it.
So we'll have school on Good Friday?
It's planned as due, this year we did a distance learning day on Good Friday,
Okay.
but it fell late, like it was, Easter was not until like the 17th or 19th, whatever it is this year. That's why I kind of put that spring break, or we proposed that as one of the options. We only have one DL day on our distance learning day on the calendar for next year. It's that same October that we're about to have, the Friday before the fall break. We've got some things we want to finish up on the professional development side, particularly with our English standards. We are rolling those out next year. We're doing some work this year. We went back and forth about not even having that day, and if we get ahead, that's something we can come and just say, hey, we don't need it. But we still got a lot of training to do. Our curriculum training is going well. Our Georgia literacy training is going well. A lot of teachers are ahead right now to where they're either finished or near finished. But the English language arts standards are changing. We have a lot of training the state is pushing down that we have to do. We're doing some of that in the spring. We may have some options of things over the summer if we can do some things with some monies to free up for that. But that distance learning day in October will give us another day that we can dedicate to that work next year.
Did you talk to any of the other schools, the other counties about the breaks and stuff in case there's like spouses and stuff that's at other schools?
We are early with ours, and so,
Oh,
This-
okay, I got you.
yeah, typically that kind of happens around January of those. What I would like to do is if we kind of think this is what our teachers wanted, I can then reach out to them. And I can talk to Dr. Newton, I can talk to Dr. Kraft, and just say, hey, here's kind of, we're a little ahead of the game, here's what we're looking at next year. Let's kind of let them know what we're thinking, and I can do that tomorrow. It's not a problem, but I wanted to share it with you guys first before I push anything else out. And I don't mind doing that at all. And then ending on May 22nd, and we have 2 days of post-planning right here. We did have 2 other work days. We have the day we come back, kind of like this year, that Monday coming back from Christmas will be a teacher work day. The kids will still be off. And then Veterans Day is once again a student holiday, teacher work day. That's our 10 professional learning day.
Okay, the day before Christmas break and the last day of school, are those gonna be still half days?
Yes, sir. I didn't put those on there. My apologies. They'll be half days as they have been. So December, when I get that,
December 19th?
December 19th and May 22nd. We'll have those as early dismissal days.
The graduation date's been picked.
For this year, or next year, not for the year after.
Okay.
Typically, they kind of alternate those. I don't know, they haven't discussed that yet.
Okay.
So that's our calendars. Any other questions on the calendar for next year?
I think it looks good.
Next up is our data review. So we have all of our milestones data back. And it is now off the embargo list, so it is public. You could go to the DOE website, and you can look it up. You can pull up by school, pull up by district, and compare to the state. All that data is there. So what I've got in this data review, it does have some iReady things in there because that's part of our data, and it's important data. And it does also have the milestones things as well. So there's a summary, kind of that first page. It kind of gives an overview of everything from milestones down into iReady. There's a year-over-year part, and that is what 5th grade did last year compared to 5th grade doing this year. Cohort means I was in 4th grade last year, I'm in 5th grade this year. Did I grow? Did I go back? You know, those kind of things. So when you see that cohort, that's what that means. And we can track cohorts for 3 years because we've been doing milestones now for 3 years since COVID. So I can look and say, okay, that's why in 9 out of 9 categories, cohort groups have outgrown the state from 21 to 24. There's only 9 categories as compared to 26 because there are some grade levels and some tests you are not going to have cohorts for. Social studies and science and high school, there are no cohorts there. That's a 1-year picture of what they do. 3rd grade, that's the first year they take the test. But 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, we can look at that cohort data as it goes through. iReady, we've got our benchmark data. That is our early on or at or above grade level students in reading and math. And then we also have our growth comparison. So they take the middle child of growth and compare that to the middle child of growth for all the other systems that they test in Georgia and in the state. So we can kind of see, okay, how is our median student comparing to them rather than an average they used to be. So that gives kind of an overview summary. So you can see we increased our number of students scoring proficient and distinguished, that's level 3 and level 4, in 17 out of our 26 areas this year. We beat the state outright in 5 out of 6 areas, that's as a district. Some individual schools beat the state at different levels, but as a district level is what we're looking at tonight. And then our grade level performance, we have outgrown the state in 17 out of 26 areas from 21 to 24. So what we talked about last year a little bit with our data, what we're talking about this year is we're catching up. In some places we've overtaken. Some places we got a little bit to go. But we started a little, it's like starting a race a little further behind, and that's kind of where we were, just coming out of COVID, to be honest. But we're catching up, and so we'll see that on the individual data as we go through. So K through 2, we do not have milestones data, we just have our iReady data that we have. This is the data we presented in June. So what we want to see here is the light green, the dark green especially, but the light green, and we want to see less red. Less red means I'm multiple grade levels below, as it were. So kindergarten, our comparisons there, we beat the state and the national average there. The far side on the left is the national norm average. They haven't done national norms since 2018, 2019. They are renorming at the moment, I believe, and so we'll get some new norms. Those will probably shift down post-COVID. This was done pre-COVID. So like that norm we don't pay as much attention to as far as comparison's sake, but that's what kind of sets the baseline for how everything is compared. So it'll be interesting to see how those norm shifts, what that does with our data when that happens. But you can see kindergarten, first grade, both outpaced the state and the national average on iReady in reading. Second grade was just behind as far as the on grade level or early on grade level, but we did a really good job there of not having our students fall as far behind. So that's a plus in that area. In the math, all 3 of K1 and 2 outpaced the state and national area, or averages in all areas, as far as kids on grade level and early on grade level, and kids not falling as far behind. So we're pleased with the work that we're doing there. Work to do. It's not all green. That's what our ultimate goal was to be. But comparatively speaking, it is improvement. Going to 3rd through 5th grade, we'll start with the iReady data here, and then we'll look at the milestones. 3rd and 4th grade, and you'll see this a little later on when we kind of do a wrap-up summary. That's where we're seeing some struggles at. We were behind the state and national average in reading as far as early on grade level and on grade level. We were ahead of them as far as kids falling farther behind grade level. We've got to turn that yellow to green in those areas. That's the goal. Those kids that are just behind, we've got to get them caught up. So we're pleased with some of our curriculum things we've got going in reading this year. There's a lot of intervention work, small group work. There's a lot of resources in that area that hopefully will help kind of fill some of those gaps and catch that yellow into green. 5th grade, we got back ahead of the state and national average, or right at it. They're just ahead of it on both sides, but still work to be done there. And this is our, speaking of reading, the iReady test is a reading test. Milestones has an ELA test. The ELA test has 2 components. There's a reading component and there is a writing component. It's all put in together. When you get an ELA score, it is a combination of those things. We also get a score for reading particularly. They take the parts of that test that are reading and they generate a score for that. They generate a Lexile level. Here's the reading level these students are on. And then that Lexile level, they have normed out and said, okay, this is on grade level for 3rd grade, this is below, this is above, these kind of things. So that's what this portion is. It is the reading portion of the ELA milestones test. And you can see over the last few years what our reading scores have done as far as on that line graph. And you can see last year where we were, according to Georgia Milestones, of students reading at or above grade level, and then comparing to the state. So we had a couple of grade levels where we were above the state average. We had some where we were below the state average. I told you kind of 3rd and 4th grade is one of those areas that you'll see throughout. That's one of the things we've been talking about last year and this year, some things we're working on. Again, with the new curriculum there, we're excited about that. You can also see on that far right column of the table the growth that's happened in that grade level. So, yes, we're below in 3rd grade. We've grown 9 points, which is good. We got more to grow. We got to do better there. But we've seen great improvements in those areas, so excited about that. Here is the 3rd through 5th grade ELA Georgia Milestones things. When you look at these, you see 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. The red is a level 1 beginning learner, yellow is a level 2 developing learner. We look at the proficient and distinguished learners there as far as when we make our comparisons to look at. So, as I said, third and fourth grade, we're struggling last year. We had some discussions about that with principals, and that's part of the impetus with the new Georgia literacy law. That was part of the things with the curriculum that was chosen. We've been in contact with our schools, how things are going so far, particularly in reading, and we've heard some positive feedback from the things that are going on in the classrooms. And I think between the training that we've done the last year, the new resources that we have, I'm expecting positive growth in those areas this year. And that's where we're gonna kind of have our focus, and you'll see that on the last slide as we talk about that. Fifth grade as well. Fifth grade was kind of interesting. We made 8% improvement from last year, but we outgained the state from last year. We're still just a hair behind the state there, so we've got some work to do in those upper elementary grades. And you see your cohorts there. That fifth grade group has grown 14 points from the time they were in third grade. So when you say cohort, that's those kids that were there moving all the way up through. So like I said, we're catching, we're making there. We got more ground to make up. All right. So moving on to math. Again, that third and fourth grade shows up there, as we talked about, as far as the on grade level or just below grade level. We're doing a good job on the lower end of keeping those kids from getting multi-years behind, especially compared to the state and the national average. Fifth grade, once again, you see it kind of climbing back up. So you see us going above the state and national averages in fifth grade on both ends of that, on the kids on grade level, early on grade level, and the kids that are multi-grade levels behind. So that's an improvement. Here's our milestones math compared. So this is the newest data we have. Here's what they told us. This was a brand new test. It was a brand new test based on new standards. So they weren't sure how it was going to compare. So they did all their math work, and they got in the room with their calculators and pencils and all that stuff. And they came back and told us, all right, we set our cut score. We have this data. They told us that it is comparable to a point. As a whole, it is comparable. So if we add our 3s and 4s together, they said that is comparable to last year. Where it's not comparable is what I think they've done, based on what they said, they have moved the bar down a little bit for that level 4. So there's a lot more level 4s this year across the state in our district. Not because kids scored necessarily higher because it's a new test, but because of where they put the bar. So they said don't compare level 4s to level 4s and level 3s to level 3s from last year because that cut score moved. They said what you could do is add up your level 3s and 4s and then compare them because that is comparable. So when you see those drops over here, which says drop and improve and whatnot, that's what that is, where those things are added up where the state said it's comparable. So fourth grade, again, fourth grade improved from last year. We improved the state as it was there, but we still got some work to do to catch up to where we need to be. Fifth grade had a good improvement last year, improved the state. Third grade was where some struggles were, so we've been working in those areas to start the year. Moving into 6th through 8th grades, again, we'll start off with the I-ready data. And 6th, 7th, and 8th grades in reading, our students outpaced the national and state average in those I-ready areas. On the top end, which is students on grade level or approaching grade level, and also on the bottom end, we had less in that 2 to 3 grade levels behind. I say that, when you look at those numbers, as a person who's taught for a long time, that's still kind of depressing when I see that many kids that far behind. And I see not that many kids on the grade level where it's at. But that's why you look at it comparatively, because everybody's taking the same test. And I see where the state is, and I see where the national average is. You know, I kind of feel a different type of way. I always have mixed feelings about this when I see it, because part of me is like, okay, comparatively, we're doing well. Golly, we got a lot of kids and we got some work we got to do. And I'll tell you this, our teachers and our administrators feel the same way. And they're working to do those things with those kids. But comparatively speaking, you can see where the reading worked out there. Here's our milestones for reading for 6th through 8th grade. So 6th grade, you can see the growth since 2021, and we've had 10% growth in that grade level. We improved a little bit from last year. The state improved us just a hair. You can see that cohort improvement from 3rd grade to 6th grade. Those kids went up 17% from where they were scoring, so that's a positive when you look at that. 7th grade, here was the interesting one, 7th grade. When you go back to that reading slide, you'll find that our 7th graders scored higher on the reading portion of the test than the state did, by a couple of percentage points. Like 70% of our kids are reading on grade level in 7th grade. but we were lower on the entire ELA score. So as we look at that data, that tells us, all right, we got some work in writing to do there. We're doing a good job on the reading stuff, we've got to work on the writing stuff, on our ELA things that we're doing. But it was an improvement from last year. 8th grade, we saw a nice improvement there, and we've seen the growth that's there as well, but we still got some things we've got to do to catch up on the ELA. All right, on the math side, once again, I-Ready far outpacing the state and the national average on these. It's not even really close on either end of that. So we've got some good things going on within the I-Ready things that are helping our students grow in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and that's an exciting thing. We've still got some work to do. Where we've got to see that translate then is, okay, here we are comparing to the state in I-Ready. So when I go to milestones on the next page, 6th grade's ahead, but our 7th and 8th grades were below there. So we've got to see about getting that stuff translated from we're doing well on the I-Ready comparatively, where's the difference between that and milestones? So that's been a discussion we've been having there. 6th grade dropped a little bit there, but we're still ahead of the state as it's grown. 20% growth since 2021, which is great. 7th grade saw an improvement from last year. 8th grade saw an improvement from last year, so that's good. The state improved just a hair above us on both of those, as you see. Our 7th grade cohort, that was a concern, and you see that drop there, what we've seen from last year and from the year before. So that's some things that we've been talking about as we've met with some of our teachers and our instructional coaches. And in 8th grade, you see the growth there from that cohort group that's been going for years. So again, that's one of those things where we're catching up. We're just not quite at it yet, but we're getting it. Yes, ma'am.
When you say on 6th grade, you said that there was a 20% growth since 2021. So are you looking at the distinguished learners, the proficient learners? Where are you getting your 20%? Is that the group you're looking at to get your 20%?
Yes, ma'am, that green and that blue.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
2021 was not a great year in 6th grade math. So we've had a lot better years since, so we're excited about that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the,
I just didn't know what you were looking at.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Science and social studies, of course, they do this only in certain grade levels. So what you see here is 5th grade science, 8th grade science, and 8th grade social studies. So 5th grade science, we beat the state there for the 3rd year in a row. We remain the same as we were. The state grew at one point, we stayed about the same. We've had good growth there since 2021. 8th grade science, we had a nice improvement there. We had a 7-point improvement. We beat the state average by 3 points. We talked about last year, that was kind of a low year. It was a little strange from there, but we were excited about the improvement we saw there. 8th grade social studies, we saw a little bit of a drop there. So those same kids did a great job in science and improved some, a little less in social studies. Again, there's no comparative data to that because that's the first social studies milestone test they've ever taken. So there's not a cohort to kind of compare that with.
So do the teachers think that is the science just harder than the social studies, or, well, I mean, that's a big difference between,
It is. And again, you get into this conversation, okay, 28% of our kids scored a 3 or a 4 on that test. 47% of them scored a 1, which would be a failing grade. That's not great.
yeah,
But when I compare it to every other kid in the state that took the test, then I see it's not great, but it's better than they were. So that tells me, one, we've got to do a better job with what we're teaching, but two, that's, the state looks at this data too. They've got to look at it and say, golly, why we got so many kids that are failing our science test in 8th grade? But those are things as we work with our instructional coaches and our admins, those are conversations, those data conversations that we're going to have. Matter of fact, one of the next things that we've got coming up is we want to present this data now that it's all public. Now we can really start sitting down with our leadership teams in our schools and going through and parsing deeper into their school data and having those conversations. That's part of the pre-evaluation process, but we've been really waiting on this milestones data.
you know, it almost looks like we're not teaching what the test is.
And apparently the state is.
That's what they do,
Yeah.
people aren't teaching the right something.
Yeah, that's one that definitely stands out. All right, 9th through 12th grades, of course here you've got your 4 subject areas. We do not have iReady there, so these are our end-of-course assessments, and we've got some struggles here. Dr. Lockman and I talked about some of these, and she's already been in contact quite a bit with our coaches at the high schools and with admins, trying to work on some things there. The positive is, we saw increases in algebra, we saw increases in American literature and composition, we saw U.S. history stay the same, biology we saw a decrease. The sad thing is, we were starting far behind as it was, and so, particularly in algebra. Last year, we had a lot of new teachers in that spot, teaching new standards on a new test. And so did everybody else in the state. They were teaching the same tests we were, teaching the same standards we were. We did have some young teachers. We saw some bright spots there. We've got some teachers we think we can grow with and do some things with. And there's something to be said for getting that first year under your belt and kind of getting a sense of what the expectation is when you see these things, that hopefully we see a good jump in the second year. Because some of those teachers that were young, they're eager and they're hardworking and they're putting in work. And so we can help direct their work a little bit and bottle that enthusiasm some. Science is one again that is one that we talked about specifically because that one has got some work to do. U.S. history we talked about doing some, and I'll show you some things, some plans in just a minute. There's some population things we're going to look at there that may help us with that test. High school is definitely an area we've got some work to do and has been. All right, so some data review takeaways. Over on the left side, there's some areas of concern and focus that we talk about, areas where we can definitely do some improvement. And on the right side, we put some plans of action. In there, you see our new curriculum that we have that we're working on. I'm also excited about our literacy framework in our elementary schools, which has kind of directed a little more time in some areas where that time needs to be spent in our literacy. So I'm excited to see that alongside our curriculum. We've been working on those 7th grade areas in writing and math, particularly now that we've got our math data back, we can get a better look and see what we need to look at. And then all of our high school areas. One thing we talked about with our EOC students is we have some students, because of the courses they take, they don't necessarily have to take the EOC exam. They may be doing dual enrollment in U.S. history, and they don't have to take the exam. Doesn't mean they can't. Because what we have is we have a lot of our best students taking these advanced classes, but they're not coming back and taking our exam. Some school systems they are, maybe some they're not. We want to get our kids to do that. So Dr. Locke's already been talking with our coaches and our teachers there. There's some crosswalk things you have to do if I'm teaching a U.S. history dual enrollment course to make sure that I hit everything in my standards that are on the test, but it's minimal. And so they're excited about doing that. And we're going to incentivize our students a little bit to say, hey, we got this other test we want you to take. But really it's going to give us some good data because we can look at it and say, okay, here's our dual enrollment students. They're making these grades on this college class. Here's how they performed on the Georgia Milestones class. It's supposed to be their high school standards. We can compare that and that helps us get better at our teaching. That's something we're working on right now too. And then some positives. We have some areas of strength and growth there, and we want to keep building on those strengths. We've got some good things going on. We see our Ready Math curriculum with Fidelity is working. We see it in our iReady. We're really wanting to work on translating that over to our milestones better, and I think we can do that in our small group settings when we're talking about remediating kids that might be a little bit behind, but also accelerating kids that are showing up ahead. Small group time is not just for kids that are struggling. Small group time is for kids to meet their needs where they are. And our teachers are working on that. We've been doing a lot of routine this first few weeks with our new curriculum. And I think it's really going to translate well to our small group time in reading and math because it develops some norms and some expectations that can carry over. Our time spent on instruction, I'm excited about that with our literacy framework. I think we can continue to build there. And also the professional development we've been doing. And we're also wanting to work with our teachers that show leadership and instruction and really get them out there and let them share ideas. We did this with our new teachers last year, and we sent them to visit some experienced teachers outside of their building. And that was something they all came back and said that was very beneficial. So we're going to replicate that and do that again. But whether you're a teacher that's brand new, maybe a teacher that's new to a grade or new to a curriculum, or maybe you're a teacher that's been teaching that stuff for 10 years and you think you got it down, it doesn't hurt for you to go see somebody else do it because you pick up ideas, you learn things. Some of the favorite things I ever had as a teacher when we had district level meetings and I go sit down with our 5th grade cohort or whatever from all the other schools. And we listened and knew what everybody wants to do, but really we're like, hey, what y'all really want? Hey, how are you teaching this? What are you working on? Those are the conversations that build capacity with our teachers. And so I'm excited about trying to replicate some of that within buildings, but also outside of buildings.
We used to do that years ago.
It's beneficial. And so that's that summary page again. It's just ending in there. So you guys have any questions?